Special to the National Supreme Ambassador Javan Sengyumba. Special to the National Supreme Ambassador Javan Sengyumba. Special to the National Supreme Ambassador Javan Sengyumba. This is video number 11 on my review on protection in humanitarian action, mainstreaming and prioritizing protection into operations. The first domain we will examine is mainstreaming and prioritizing protection into operations. As you've seen, the humanitarian coordinator, when designated, is ultimately responsible for ensuring that protection is prioritized and mainstreamed into operations. The global protection cluster identifies key actions that the humanitarian coordinator and the humanitarian country teams could request from the intercluster coordination mechanism, the clusters and the protection cluster to comply with these objectives. Objective number 1. Task the ICCM to ensure that protection mainstreaming is implemented across clusters. This includes insertion of clear protection objectives and outcomes in the Humanitarian Response Plan (HRP) that each sector must respond to, and encouraging cross-cluster evaluation of projects. For example, the requirements for including protection mainstreaming for each cluster can be encouraged by the ICCM by ensuring that they are reflected in all template documents for the humanitarian needs overview, or HNO, to be completed by each cluster. This approach was used in Iraq and the whole Syria for their respective 2018 HRPs. Objective number 2. Ensure that concrete protection projects are funded rather than just protection trainings and sharing of guidance. For example, as part of the preparation work for the 2018 Humanitarian Needs Overview (HNO) and HRP, the Iraq Protection Cluster has supported each cluster in their respective submissions to identify relevant protection risks for each cluster and ways to prevent or mitigate them. This has been included as a section to complete in the template for each cluster's submission for the HNO and HRP. Objective number 3. Ensure the engagement with the affected people such that they guide protection analysis, programming, and the HCT or humanitarian country team decisions. Integrate an accountability to affected people approach consistent with the Interagency Standing Committee guidance. For example, the establishment of the AWAZ, that is AWAAZ, Afghanistan Call Center, an Interagency Information Center that had countrywide reach, and toll-free call center to allow a two-way communication for strengthening accountability between humanitarian actors and the communities, serve as a tool for making referrals and provide data about needs. Objective number 4. Ensure that the protection cluster provides the comprehensive and continuous protection analysis that details the main protection threats, risks, and vulnerabilities in order to inform decisions and programming. For example, in South Sudan, the protection cluster conducts assessments, prepares analysis, and reports for the Intercluster Working Group, ICWG, and the HCT, Humanitarian Country Team, including protection as a standing agenda item for the ICWG meetings, meant that the main protection issues are raised and protection risk analysis inform the discussion on various sector responses. For example, the protection cluster prepared an analysis on the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in the Republic of South Sudan, which included the considerations from the perspective of women, peace, and security. Implementing the Humanitarian Country Team Protection Strategy. The Humanitarian Coordinator and Humanitarian Country Teams should ensure that the strategy is short and understandable to actors that are not protection experts and is based on the prioritization of the 2 or 3 most critical protection concerns in the country that the Humanitarian Country Team will collectively address through operations and high-level advocacy. The strategy must allow for flexibility to adapt to potential changes in operational contexts. Buy-in from all of senior leadership, not just the protection mandated agencies, is crucial, or there is a risk of duplication with the work of the protection cluster and the ICCM. So went through a case study in South Sudan in 2015. The Humanitarian Coordinator, Humanitarian Country Team agreed to prioritize 1. Strengthening SGBV programming and joint HCT advocacy, and 2. The protection of civilians with a focus on boys and girls. Since the launch of the Interagency Standing Committee Policy on Protection 2016, 70% of all field operations have established Humanitarian Country Team comprehensive protection strategies as of December 2018. Implementing the HCT, the Humanitarian Country Team Protection Strategy, Global Protection Recommendations. Let's look at some other factors that go into implementing the comprehensive protection strategy. The Global Protection Cluster recommends that the Humanitarian Coordinator convene a workshop with the Humanitarian Country Team members to kick-start the strategy development process. Humanitarian Coordinator leadership and Humanitarian Country Team ownership are crucial for efficient implementation. Protection cluster analysis and advice should be an important basis for developing the strategy. The Humanitarian Country Team could create a temporary secretariat consisting of protection cluster and sub-cluster leads, together with select non-governmental organization representatives, to prepare the workshop and lead the drafting process. If necessary, the support of the Norwegian Refugee Council protection capacity roster to draft the strategy can also be requested. Advocating on protection within the Humanitarian Country Team. Protection as a standing item include protection as a standing item on the Humanitarian Country Team agenda and have the agency lead for protection present critical protection issues CPI note. The note can be prepared by the protection cluster coordinators, link to the Humanitarian Country Team protection strategy priorities, and include recommendation or recommended actions. Regular updates. Where applicable, have regular updates at humanitarian country team meetings on the implementation of the United Nations country team human rights upfront HRUF work, and vice versa with the United Nations country team on the implementation of the humanitarian country team protection strategy. Point number 3. After protection as a standing item, after regular updates, let's see coordinate advocacy. That is point number 3 of advocating on protection within the humanitarian country team. So coordinate advocacy. Advocate on protection together as the humanitarian country team using the HCT protection strategy and CPI note. Humanitarian coordinators and humanitarian country teams can take advocacy forward together by convening a small core group of humanitarian country team members led by the humanitarian coordinator to coordinate advocacy and representation. At a minimum, the group should include the agency lead for the protection cluster, one non-governmental organization, and a United Nations agency. Consider tasking and advocacy staff to produce short messages based on the CPI note. Remember that CPI is critical protection issues note. So the point number 4 on advocating on protection within the humanitarian country team is to engage existing networks. Humanitarian coordinators and humanitarian country teams can also take advocacy forward by establishing or engaging existing networks of influential stakeholders for advocacy. For example, influential ambassadors. Build on the complementarities across humanitarian country team members who have access to different levels and types of stakeholders. For example, make use of the CPI. So, working collectively to enhance protection of civilians. In addition to the 3 domains we've just examined, the Global Protection Cluster has identified several best country level practices on working collectively to enhance the protection of civilians, including use an international human rights law and international humanitarian law framework in public and private advocacy, including with the parties to the conflict. Use humanitarian civil military coordination experts in support of information collection, networking, and advocacy. If necessary, the humanitarian coordinator could request a senior advisor such as a senior human rights officer to support the humanitarian coordinator or humanitarian country team's rise of international humanitarian law and human rights law. The advisor should work with all relevant actors, especially the protection cluster and office for the coordination of humanitarian affairs, civil military coordination officers. Task the intercluster coordination group to develop and endorse an operational framework to guide frontline humanitarian workers on how to deal with dilemmas involving protection and humanitarian principles for humanitarian workers, especially those engaging with the parties to the conflict. Summary and key points. The humanitarian community, including the humanitarian coordinator, the humanitarian country teams, all clusters, and the protection cluster, have a responsibility to place protection at the heart of humanitarian action. Humanitarian coordinators and humanitarian country teams, through the Interagency Standing Committee policy on Protection of the year 2016 have been tasked with developing comprehensive protection strategies, focusing on protection priorities and action beyond the Humanitarian Response Plan and the Protection Cluster Strategy. The Humanitarian Country Team Protection Strategy needs to inform and be informed by the Protection Cluster Strategy and the Humanitarian Program Cycle. The Humanitarian Country Team Protection Strategy is founded on 4 key commitments. Everyone contributes to protection outcomes, and protection actors play a role in supporting other non-protection actors. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. Special United Nations Green Ambassador Gerard Nsengiyumva, Special United Nations Green Ambassador Gerard Nsengiyumva, Special United Nations Green Ambassador Gerard Nsengiyumva. This puts an end to Unit 6 or more, Module 6 of this course review.